They thought it would be a routine push through quiet farmlands, another morning of dust, engines, and easy victory. But the calm that stretched across eastern Ukraine wasn't peace. It was precision waiting to strike. What began as a confident advance would soon unravel into chaos, as unseen eyes above turned one mission into a massacre. The sun had barely crested the horizon when the thunder began, not from the sky but from the earth itself. The sound of hundreds of engines rolled like distant artillery, echoing through the stillness of the Ukrainian countryside. Dust rose in long golden trails behind the advancing Russian motorcycle units. They moved fast, in tight formation, their exhausts spitting fire and their radios crackling with orders. For these riders, this was meant to be simple: a morning sprint through farmland, push past the outer defensive lines, link up with armored columns, and prepare for the next major offensive. They had done this before, the same dirt roads, the same orders, the same confidence. But this time, something was different. Unknown to them, hundreds of meters above, invisible in the haze, a silent watcher had already marked their arrival. Inside a dimly lit control center, hidden beneath camouflage netting, the operators of Ukraine's Azov Brigade sat in near total silence. The room was filled with the faint hum of electronics and the rhythmic tapping of keys. Multiple screens glowed, displaying thermal images, live maps, and streams of incoming data. Every figure, every vehicle, every movement was being tracked with precision. Column detected, 40-plus motorcycles, moving southbound, grid D14, murmured one operator. Confirm visual. Infirm. Their voices were calm, detached. This was not panic or adrenaline. This was procedure. While the riders below felt the thrill of speed, the operators above felt something entirely different: control. To them, this wasn't a battlefield, it was a chessboard. On the ground, the Russian troops continued to advance. The smell of oil and exhaust filled the crisp morning air. They laughed, shouted, exchanged quick jokes over the radio. The countryside seemed empty, safe even. The few farmhouses they passed were long abandoned, the fields quiet except for the roar of their engines. As farther they pushed, the narrower the road became. To their left and right, wide-open plains stretched endlessly, golden and exposed under the morning sun. They had no idea how vulnerable they were. Above them, a soft beeping filled the Azov control room. Targets locked, distances confirmed, drone coordinates uploaded. The commander leaned forward, his voice steady but cold. Range optimal. Permission to engage. Permission granted, came the reply. With that, a faint hiss broke the silence. A small launch tube expelled a drone into the air, no louder than a whisper. Within seconds, half a dozen more followed, each climbing rapidly, their tiny propellers blending with the wind. From the ground, they were invisible. From the sky, they were inevitable. The drones spread out, forming a loose formation above the convoy. Each carried a shaped charge no bigger than a water bottle, yet capable of punching through armor or detonating a fuel tank. The operators' screens lit up with real-time feeds. Each drone had a target, one motorcycle, one soldier. Then the command came: execute. The first explosion came without warning, a sharp, deafening blast that tore through the morning calm. The lead motorcycle erupted in flames, flipping end over end before crashing into the dirt. Shouts filled the air, engines roared, radios crackled with confusion. Ambush! Ambush! Break formation! But before anyone could react, a second explosion followed, then a third. The column disintegrated into chaos. Some riders swerved off the road, crashing into fields. Others gunned their throttles, trying to outrun the invisible threat. From above, the Azov operators watched calmly. Each red dot on their screen blinked once, then disappeared. One target after another. Target neutralized. Next. Within minutes, what had begun as a confident advance turned into a desperate scramble for survival. Those who tried to take cover quickly discovered the truth: there was no cover. The open farmland offered nothing but burning wrecks and the distant line of the horizon. Each operator managed several drones at once, switching between live feeds with mechanical precision. To them, the chaos below looked almost abstract, a ballet of explosions and movement, predictable and systematic. The drones circled, swooped, and struck again. Some detonated fuel tanks, others targeted soldiers attempting to flee. In less than 10 minutes, the once proud convoy was reduced to twisted metal and smoke. And as the dust settled, the only sound that remained was the faint hum of drones hovering above, scanning for survivors. News of the ambush spread fast, not through official channels but through panic. Russian communication lines were flooded with conflicting reports. Some claimed an artillery strike. Others insisted it was sabotage from within. But the truth was both simpler and more terrifying. This wasn't artillery, and it wasn't sabotage. It was evolution. This was drone warfare, the kind of battle that rewrites the rules. For decades, warfare had been defined by mass, tanks, soldiers, and firepower. But on this quiet stretch of farmland, those ideas collapsed. The Azov Brigade didn't need thousands of men or heavy artillery. All they needed were 6 operators, a handful of laptops, and a fleet of drones smaller than seagulls. The cost comparison was staggering. Each Russian motorcycle, armed and armored, was worth tens of thousands of dollars. Each Ukrainian drone, less than the price of a rifle. And yet, the balance of power had flipped completely. Military analysts later debated what happened that morning. Was it a fluke, a perfect storm of timing and luck? Or was it proof that the era of mechanized dominance was over? Even Russian state media, usually quick to bury battlefield losses, couldn't ignore the implications. Reports described unexpected aerial strikes and unidentified flying devices. For the first time, commanders openly questioned how to counter such a small, agile, and nearly invisible enemy. The controversy deepened when leaked footage from Azov's drones surfaced online. Grainy thermal images showed the ambush in chilling detail. Motorcycles bursting into flames, soldiers scattering in confusion, explosions lighting up the fields. The video went viral almost instantly, shared across military forums, social media, and news outlets worldwide. Some called it a masterpiece of modern tactics, others called it a war crime. Critics argued that drone strikes blurred the line between combat and assassination, that killing from afar by remote control stripped warfare of its humanity. Supporters countered that this was the new humanity, a form of precision that reduced collateral damage, spared civilians, and leveled the playing field against overwhelming odds. But beyond the politics and propaganda, one fact was undeniable. The drones had won. The Azov Brigade's approach was not about brute strength. It was about data, the ability to see first, decide faster, and strike smarter. Their drones didn't just attack, they observed, learned, and adapted. Each mission produced gigabytes of intelligence used to refine future operations. For the soldiers on the ground, this meant living in constant paranoia. Every sound in the sky could mean death, every shadow could be watching. The battlefield had become digital, and visibility itself was now a liability. Even miles from the front lines, Russian troops began altering their behavior. Convoys moved slower, communications went silent for long stretches, units avoided open roads. The fear of invisible eyes above them spread faster than any weapon could. Psychological warfare had evolved, and the drones didn't just kill, they haunted. But this was only the beginning. The Azov Brigade's success that morning wasn't a one-time victory. It was a prototype, a live demonstration of a new doctrine taking shape across Ukraine's military network. Behind every ambush, every strike, was a larger goal: to make the Russian war machine obsolete. Weeks later, analysts began noticing patterns. Similar ambushes occurred across multiple regions. Convoys vanishing, armor columns halted, supply lines cut with surgical precision. The same signatures appeared each time: minimal Ukrainian presence on the ground, maximum devastation from above. It was as if an invisible army was rewriting the rules of engagement in real time. For Russia, this new reality was a nightmare. Traditional countermeasures, radar, anti-aircraft systems, electronic jamming, were designed for planes and missiles, not for swarms of drones smaller than a backpack. The technology gap was closing fast, and every successful strike only accelerated the pace. Within military circles, a chilling phrase began circulating: "The age of armor is over." Even Western strategists watched closely. NATO intelligence officers quietly studied Azov's tactics, noting how small, decentralized drone units could cripple larger forces with minimal resources. The war had become a testing ground, not just for weapons, but for the future of warfare itself. And as footage from the ambush continued to circulate online, one chilling question emerged. If this could happen to a convoy of motorcycles in open terrain, what would happen when drones turn their attention to cities, airbases, or fleets? That question, the fear of what comes next, would define the next phase of the conflict. Because for Ukraine, this was no longer about survival. It was about dominance through innovation. And for those watching from afar, one truth was clear. The skies had become the new front line. The morning had turned into a nightmare of smoke and silence. The once proud convoy meant to spearhead another advance now lay scattered across the countryside, a twisted graveyard of steel and ash. Flames licked at the edges of blackened fields. The air shimmered with heat and grief. And yet, even as the fires burned, the sky above remained alive with motion. More drones hovered, scanning the wreckage, tracking the few survivors, staggering between the smoldering ruins. From the Azov command center, the operators watched without celebration. Their mission was complete, but their work wasn't over. Data was still being recorded, footage archived, coordinates logged, telemetry analyzed. Every second of combat became intelligence for the next strike. "Confirm zero mobility," the commander ordered. "Confirmed," one operator replied. "Mark all wrecks for retrieval." In that dim room, lit only by the glow of screens, the war felt almost abstract. Lives reduced to heat signatures, victory measured in data points. But this was the reality of modern warfare, a world where silence and precision replaced shock and firepower. Within hours, reports of the ambush rippled through Russian command channels. Confusion turned to disbelief, disbelief to anger. How could a single drone team annihilate an entire motorized unit in minutes? How could technology, so small, so cheap, become so unstoppable? Orders went out across the front. Restrict movement during daylight, change convoy routes, increase air patrols. Yet every precaution seemed too late. By the time new protocols were issued, the next ambush had already happened. Different region, same outcome. Drone warfare wasn't just effective, it was infectious. What had begun as an isolated Azov operation was now being replicated across Ukraine's defense network. Mobile drone teams popped up near every hotspot, each learning, evolving, adapting. The Russian strategy, built on mass and momentum, suddenly found itself fighting ghosts. Invisible hunters that struck from the sky, disappeared into silence, and left nothing but wreckage behind. And the most chilling part? There was no clear countermeasure. Traditional air defenses couldn't lock onto objects that small. Electronic jammers struggled to disrupt encrypted signals. Even trained sharpshooters rarely had a chance to spot, let alone shoot down, a drone no bigger than a bird. Every advantage Russia once held, speed, armor, numbers, had been stripped away by a weapon that cost less than a week's fuel for a single tank. It was more than a tactical shift. It was a strategic earthquake. When Ukrainian commanders reviewed the footage that evening, there was no cheering, no applause, only quiet understanding. Each frame of video told a story, not of glory, but of evolution. The world was watching, nations took notes, military academies replayed the footage over and over, studying every frame. The lessons were undeniable. Visibility is vulnerability. Mobility without intelligence is suicide. The side that owns the sky, no matter how small that sky is, owns the battlefield. What had once been science fiction had become standard practice. War had entered a new age, the age of the drone, where data replaced brute force and precision replaced fear. For the soldiers of Azov, that knowledge came with weight. They knew their work was rewriting military history, but they also knew that behind every success, there were faces they would never see again. The enemy below them wasn't abstract. They were men, soldiers, humans. And yet, in this new kind of war, emotion had no place. Hesitation meant death. As the last drone returned to base, landing softly in a patch of trampled grass, the operators finally stood. Their screens dimmed, their headsets came off. The mission was over. Outside, the sound of distant artillery rolled faintly through the air, a reminder that tomorrow it would all begin again. When the fires died and the sun sank behind the horizon, the battlefield looked almost peaceful again, a quiet lie painted over devastation. The same sky that watched the slaughter now glowed orange and pink, as if pretending none of it had happened. But for those who understood what took place there, that morning marked more than a battle won. It marked the death of an era and the birth of another. The age of armor had ended, the age of the drone had begun. And as Ukraine's silent hunters continued to patrol the skies, one truth echoed across every front. No convoy is safe, no road is hidden, and no enemy unseen. If you want to stay ahead of every breakthrough that's redefining the modern battlefield, from drone ambushes to electronic warfare, make sure you subscribe to Delta History. Join us as we uncover the stories the headlines miss. The moments where technology, courage, and chaos collide to shape the wars of tomorrow. Because history isn't just written in books anymore. It's written in the skies above the battlefield.